Isn't she lovely evermore? I'm thinking about being glowy and shiny. I ran into a friend of mine recently who I hadn't seen in a while, and she was just shining, like light pouring out of her eyes, this just glow about her, and she was newly in love. And isn't that what we really want in our lives? Is to be filled with the light of love, is to be moving through our days delighted and radiating that joy and that love. And it feels nearly impossible these days, but this is what the mystics are talking about. This is what Matthew Fox and our guiding idea for the year of falling in love with everything more deeply, falling in love with life itself more fully, to become more alive as the truth of who you are right now in these times. And because you have a practice, because you learn how to tap into the sacred, right? The sacred irises that are blooming right now, that are blowing my mind, helping me to fall in love every day right now. And there's ways that you and I can do that, which we're going to do this month. So join me. We're going to be sound bathing. We are going to be singing and chanting and moving in meditation. And you'll have an opportunity in the Albuquerque area to get into the practice of ritual and ceremony this solstice. Learning how to create intention in the sacred every day so that you can glow up and have your spiritual glow up. I love you so much. Happy glowing.
Hopefully you have some sense of peace, some sense of like groundedness, which is one of the things that we've been talking about a little bit this month, is practicing ritual and ceremony so that we can have these experiences of a felt experience of the spiritual life that we long for. And so I just want us to know that when we practice things like chanting and guided chanting, right? Very specific chants, which actually comes from a tradition of the divine masculine. And so for a moment, I'm going to ask you, because you're feeling good and juicy in your body, we're just going to put down patriarchy for a minute. We're just going to put it down. We're going to put down colonization and imperialism and the oligarchy, all of the shit. We're going to put it down for a moment and feel how it feels having participated in a process that is got a containment to it, right? We go through a ritual that has some specific order so that we can come into contact with the full aliveness of spirit in our own bodies, so that we can be the expression of the divine through our voices, through our felt experience, because of the container of the chant. Which is a great way of thinking about the masculine and the feminine energetically and spiritually when we put down all the BS that we were handed about these things. Right? The divine is non-binary. It has all the things, and so do we. But one of the things that I think happens because of the culture we've been raised in and live our lives in, we reject parts of spirit itself because we think they're not good or they're not valued. And maybe because they aren't, right? There are things that are actually truly not valued about certain gendered experiences, but to know yourself as divine means you must know yourself as all of these characteristics. So we need the container and we need the constant motion, right? That is unending and infinite beyond what we can see, right? The ocean that never stops waving. And we need the container to hold it all, These are the qualities that often get talked about in faith traditions across the world as masculine and feminine. And today, we're going to celebrate some of that masculine. But if that language is hard for you and you're just really messed up with patriarchy, choose some new words. It's all good, because the characteristics remain the same. We want to talk about what it means, when I was sharing earlier, to be so clear in your own experience of yourself as divine, that your very body, your very flesh, that your very being, that your very consciousness is divinely appointed, that there is nothing out here in circumstances, no outer authority that can undo that truth in you. I actually thought Jesse's story, Jesse's story of discovering that there were fires and the campground was closed, that was a very perfect example of what it means to go, oh, circumstances are kind of wacky and crazy. And I could go wacky and crazy with it and be like, rah, what's going on? Or I could center and tone and chant and get really clear about the truth of myself, truth of what the divine is, what's possible when I take my own energy and my own knowing and hone it in, laser focus, ground, center, and pray the prayer, right? This is part of what's available to us when we bring the authority that is our own divine authority into conscious awareness as the most powerful thing we have access to. Because, part of what we've been indoctrinated into is to give our authority away, is to seek other people's authority, right? As we feel, for all kinds of really valid reasons, like, oh, I'm not really a leader, I don't really know what I'm doing, and I just wish somebody else would figure it out, and I'll just do what they tell me to do, right? We abdicate our authority all the time. And yet, to be someone who decides that their spiritual life, their spiritual being, is the priority, means that you must be willing to take your power back. Because to know yourself as divine, to know yourself as divinely made, divinely appointed on purpose, means that you cannot abdicate the truth of who you are to somebody else's idea of you. And we spend a lot of time on other people's ideas of us, as if they are more true or more powerful than what the divine had in mind when you came into being. The divine is never confused. The divine is never unclear. The divine is never waiting for somebody else to decide what is the most important thing for you. We hear these cliche things all the time. Everything you need is within you. But if that is actually true, which I believe that is true, because everything that you and I are is divinely made, which means the wisdom of the divine is available in you, in me. And the place that knows that it knows that it knows, the place that can be undisturbed by all of the chaos and noise and opinions and indoctrination and programming and all the things, the place in you that knows that it knows that it knows that it knows is divine. And because you have that, you know how to navigate all of this. Right? It is the thing in you that knows when something is off. That knows that law over there is not one that I can actually follow. There's a thing in me that knows better. Right? And we make ourselves truly powerful when we begin to take our power back. And one of the ways we do that is take our attention back. right? What are we attending to? What are we giving our energy to? What are we spending our time on, our resources on? And when we begin to pull some of that in, like, you know what, I'm going to give myself and my ability to come into contact with my own authority, with my sovereignty, so that I can meet whatever needs to be met in the world from a place that knows good and right. There's a compass in you and I that always knows where north is. There's nothing out here. There's no programming, no indoctrination, no conditioning, no systemic anything that can break that. Anything. Unbreakable. And when we decide that our spiritual life is the most important thing, which I think is a really good idea right now on the planet, just FYI, so that you can harness the truest and most powerful thing you've got access to. The thing that knows that it knows that it knows, that has always been whole, has always been made of all of the exact right pieces of the divinity that is shaped as you. And when that becomes your North Star, when you contact that through your practice, through your community, because we are reflecting that for each other, all of this noise out here becomes a little quieter, less disturbing. Right? When we are faced with circumstances that seem wildly inappropriate or really dangerous or not okay, we have the strength of our own being to make a choice in that moment, to put our bodies in the way what should be put in the way of. Right? That's the thing that makes us go out into the world and say no with absolute clarity. Because you know that you know that you know. No one has to tell you this is right or that is wrong. Because you know that you know that you know. And some of us, I do believe, are more naturally inclined towards certain characteristics of the divine than others. I didn't come with a lot of the masculine built in. I didn't get a lot of the structure in my nature. So I have to cultivate it. I have to lean on my friends who have it, like my Virgos and my Capricorns, right? Like I have to go find them to help me develop the practice to put some structure that helps me have the clarity and the sovereignty to move from that place in me that knows that it knows that it knows. To not get caught up in my own spinning inside with my own programming and indoctrination, right? And messaging and misbelief, all the things. It is that practice of the masculine, of the containment, of the clarity, of the solid, still, unmoved, that helps me take what naturally rises in me as motion and creativity and action and lets me focus that and get some stuff done. And I lean on my friends who naturally move in that way. I lean on the practices that help me build container for myself. Because the divine is absolutely whole and perfect in every moment, which means that is whole and perfect in me in every moment. So I can cultivate that part of myself. I can find the rituals that provide that container. The simple things like simply lighting a candle and saying a prayer and setting an intention every morning. Right? When I say ritual, it doesn't have to be crazy. Like, this was lovely, and we don't have to do this every day. Right? We don't have to invite Jenny and Jesse and Clarissa over to our house so that we can have a chant ritual. But we can take one of these ideas into our morning practice. Light a candle. Say a thing. It could be a thing that really helps you ground. It could just simply be, I know that the divine is where I am. And so I walk today with that truth. Sometimes it's simply for myself. On my in-breath, I am. On my out-breath, you are. And these little baby rituals give us the container to bring the spirit of truth that is ever available in my body, in your knowing, into our lived lives. That's why we have ritual. And I think it's been lost in our culture, right? Most of us, especially in communities like this, don't have a lot of ritual and ceremony anymore. We got super heady and very corporate, right? We just decided we were going to do this other thing. Except we missed the practices and the things that help us gather the skills to live the life of spirit, to live the wholeness of our own being, and to be able to walk in the world less swayed by everything going on around us. This is the beauty of that divine masculine. And we can build in these containers throughout our days. Simply lighting a candle and setting an intention every morning. Taking a moment to pray before a meal. You know, we can go all the way there, like our Islam brothers and sisters and kin, who pray at a certain time 5 times every day. I feel like that's the high bar, but we could go there. These rituals, these commitments become how we can gather all that we are and laser focus it with intention so that the mission of this community, which is to be love in action, can happen. Right? We take the love that is bigger and uncontainable and we focus it in our actions, in our intentions. This is the gift of the divine in its masculine nature. And may each of us know ourselves to be it and to cultivate that, whatever gender you are. We all have this in us, as us, and we have a conscious use of it so that it can move through us. So we can be the place that love shows up. And when we do that, when we begin to gather all that we are and let that move through us in intentional, conscious, loving action, the glow up that I promised we would have this month becomes possible. That's how that becomes possible. It is turning down the noise of all of the crazy and bringing the full attention that the divine deserves as you to life. Happy Father's Day.